After an arguably dangerous meeting with some kindred near a nearby church, where dear Jessica met a priest and was faced with the true faith for the first time, she attempts to shake that feeling off and press on. There are still hours left in this night, and a crime is working on being solved. D'Angelo waits for us. Knowing there are only so many places with a good enough view of Manhattan Bridge, we decide to check out the ones that aren't likely to be crowded at this time of night. It doesn't take long before you hit the jackpot. As you're walking along the pier, you notice a lonely figure sitting on the bench. Steel flask in hand with his leg up on the railing. Soon enough, you hear a familiar voice. Evening turned to night, and as the final flickering rays of sunlight gave way to the kind of nocturnal shadows, so did the last of the jabbering tourists give way to a blessed silence. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling. Pausing mid-sentence, he leans back over the bench backrest and looks straight at you. Upside down, his face looks even creepier than usual. That I wasn't alone. I have to ask, what is it with you and narrating? Takes the edge off. Just like this. He takes a sip, then points the flask in your general direction. Fancy a sip. The warlock who prepared this knows how to add a bit of bite. Feeding opportunity, D'Angelo's flask. Interesting. Sure, why not? You smell the contents of the flask and immediately recoil. Even if it wasn't for the tasty whiff of cheap booze, the underlying scent of blood underneath isn't appetizing at all either. You know what? I'll pass. You know you won't hear me complaining. Not about that anyway. There's been another one. Down by the docks. Same MO. Blood, graffiti. Yep, it was our gal, all right. Victim sucked dry, same as before. Another sign on the wall. Something about impending doom and oh lord, he coming. The particulars, they escape me. You know, that night I saw her, she looked so frail, so innocent. Deep inside, I was hoping she'd be spooked, get out of town. That maybe, just maybe, that would be the end of it. But that's me, you know, hopeless optimistic. Any idea why she's doing it? Doesn't really matter at this point. Whether she's Kane's chosen or just a poor girl going nuts after a botched embrace, one thing is painfully clear. He gives you a look of worry and sadness. She ain't gonna stop. He takes a swig, as if to punctuate the sentence. So anyway, I've set up a meeting, neutral ground, public space. Shouldn't get too ugly. Still, I was hoping you could tag along. Is it Larsen again? Nah, let's leave the poor schmuck alone for now. It's pretty clear he's just as clueless as we are. He looks away and taps the bench next to where he's sitting. You might want to sit for this one. Unless you want to introduce me to your parents, I can probably handle it. Come on, who is it? Valerie. Valerie, as in the murderous bitch Valerie. Likes to choke people out for the of it, Valerie. That Valerie. You ever notice that if you repeat a word enough times, it just starts to sound like animal noises? But yeah, that Valerie. I know you two didn't exactly hit it off, but she's not as bad as you might think. I mean, in some respects, she's probably worse, but she can be reasoned with. Once again, he goes for the flask, but stops himself mid-motion. Look, the way I see it, we ain't got a choice. As much as I want to help Santa, she's clearly a few bats short of Belfry. More people are gonna die unless we do something about it. Do you really think we can trust someone like Valerie? D'Angelo almost does a spit take. No. But we can do business with her. I'm just worried that her asking price might be too steep for my liking. But then again, you don't always get what you want, huh? Noticeably proud of his words of wisdom, he tries to top him off with one last swig. A single drop falls between his crooked teeth. He looks at the empty flask with the utmost contempt. Well, ain't that the fucking poignant part of this whole thing? Muttering a curse under his breath, he makes a valiant effort to get up off the bench. As he staggers, struggling to remain upright, you offer your shoulder to lean on. He shoots you a smile that's as crooked as it is affectionate. Hey kid. You meet his gaze, trying to look friendly rather than condescending. You alright? And with that heartfelt moment, you bid adieu to the sprawling vista and make your way toward the bridge. Next stop, Manhattan. Entering the park from Midtown Manhattan, you promptly take a spot by one of the alleys, not very deep into the park. Minutes pass. 5, 10, 15. You start to wonder if she's even gonna show up. Suddenly, you hear a familiar voice, but an unfamiliar tone. She sounds almost nice. Hello, Jeannie. And there she is, walking along the side of the fountain. She looks less out of place here than back at that junkie-infested hovel, but only by a slight margin. Something tells you there are only so many places she would feel at home, and probably not ones you would want to find yourself in. Val. She glances over you, barely noting your presence. Sorry about last time. Nothing personal, you understand. When I get caught up in the moment, I can get a bit intense. I can attest to that. Play nice, you two. We have some business to discuss. All work and no play, huh? Why not? She turns to D'Angelo and flutters her eyelashes. You can tell she doesn't see you as her equal, but this come-hither routine is getting kind of unnerving. Lay it on me, sugar. We have a mutually beneficial proposition. Does the pup speak for you, Jeannie? Because I'm getting a weird Sorcerer's Apprentice vibe right now. Give the kid a break, Val. We hear about Santa, the thin blood you're after. The girl's a threat. We need to find her. Figured we can do it faster if we work together. Uh-huh. Keep going, honey. Because I have a feeling there's a catch coming. The catch is... awkward silence. It's not often you see him at a loss for words. Seeing him struggle, you decide to jump in. We want the girl to stay alive. See, now that's a deal breaker right there, sugar. If you want me to even consider it, you'll have to sweeten the pot. Once again, she turns to D'Angelo. And I bet tall, dark, and handsome over here might have some ideas. Just tell us what you want. Oh, you're no fun anymore. She wants a higher profile target, to show off to the prince what a good little scourge she is. That all you care about nowadays, huh? Playing the game? Climbing them ranks. A smile creeps up on her lips. You can tell it's forced. D'Angelo definitely knows how to get under her skin. That's my Ginny. A big old brain and a heart to match. Once again, she turns to you. I knew right away he'd try to help this girl. He just loves himself a damsel in distress. But you? I'm still not sure what your angle is. And what do you care? I don't, honey. Not really. It's called making conversation. So there, you know my terms. Contact me when you've made up your mind. Don't take too long, though. I'm a lucky girl. I might just find your little thin blood on my own. Still, I hope we can work together. We did make a good team back in the day, didn't we? Slowly, seductively, she puts her arm on his shoulders. She glances over to you, clearly enjoying how awkward it makes you feel. You really have a thing for the hidden, don't you? My things are none of your concerns, sugar. Anyway, withdrawing from the strange half-embrace, she flicks D'Angelo's nose gently with her index finger. Almost instantly, she turns from flirtatious dispassionate. However this plays out, I have a feeling we'll meet again sooner than later. Until then, without sparing you another glance, she disappears down an unlit park alley. D'Angelo watches her go. The look on his face, a mixture of longing and guilt, is borderline comical. Finally, he turns back toward you, as if breaking some spell he was under. Well, that could have gone a lot worse. What did you mean by a higher profile target? It's not what, it's whom. She wants me to give her Larsen. Larsen? Why would she want him? He's a primogen, remember. A weak one, but still. For a scourge, he's a much more valuable target than some no-name dustborn. And it so happens a certain someone might have some dirt on him. He squints, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Fuck it. I'm heading back to the office. Need to get my feet up and get some blood flowing to the old noggin. You coming? You nod. Why the hell not? And so, you make your way toward 5th Ave. You got a long walk ahead of you, and a lot of stuff to figure out. Although it's not your first visit, you still find it hard to navigate the dark, rust-ridden corners of the grain terminal. Luckily this time, you're with someone who could probably do this blindfolded, so you just follow his lead. As you're both climbing the rickety stairs leading to the mezzanine, you suddenly notice light coming from D'Angelo's office. A quick look assures you that no, he did not in fact leave it on. You bust through the door, like Undead Tango and Hooch, or was that Turner and Cash, ready to unleash a whole unholy fury on the intruders. You half expect an Anarch Death Squad or an SI hunting party. SI, short for Second Inquisition, often abbreviated as SI, a collective name among vampires for the recent coordinated efforts of intelligence agencies to combat the kindred as if they were a terrorist threat. Few individual agents understand what they are fighting, and the intra-agency collaboration codenamed First Light places enormous import on keeping their operations secret and disguised as ordinary anti-terrorist actions. Yeah, there's all kinds of different SI out there. Instead, you get Larsen, who nearly falls out of the chair when you two bust in. Well, look who it is. Missed us already? Hardly. Seemingly both intrigued and irritated by your surprise visit, D'Angelo walks over to a cabinet and pulls out a fresh cigar. May I ask what brings you, O venerable primogen, to my humble abode? Her. He points at a tiny shadow cowering in the corner of the room. To your astonishment, it turns out to be a very familiar face. The blood. No. Not again, please. Did she tell you anything? She just keeps babbling about blood and signs and all this nonsense. She came to my house, probably figured out who I was, thought I could help, but honestly, I have no idea what to do with her. I mean, I should turn her into the prince, but that's just another strike against my people. Then again, I can't just set her loose, not after what she did. F*** D'Angelo. You can tell I'm desperate and my first instinct was to come to you. No, Larsen. I would attribute that decision to what's left of your common sense. He leans over to you. Hey kid, I think we should call it a night. Just give me some time to think, to talk to the girl. Maybe I'll get through to her somehow. The sign! It's always there! Away, holding my breath. Honestly, you're glad to leave him to it. Spending the night in a small room with a tiny serial killer somehow doesn't seem too appealing. Still, you're hoping D'Angelo will be alright. He's got some tough choices ahead of him. And the night comes to a close. I am intrigued. To hand over Larsen or the girl, depending on the circumstances, both could be beneficial. Though having Larsen on my side, that might be more valuable. Or selfishly, if we can find the dirt on Larsen, handing him over ourselves could be a kick in Valerie into her face, while still helping us. You're walking down the street toward your haven. In some other town, the sidewalks would be deserted this time of night. In New York, There are plenty of passerby going about their business. It's easy to be paranoid when you're a vampire surrounded by a crowd of humans. The kindred have many enemies, and all those enemies have one trait in common. They're invisible, indistinguishable from normal humanity. Other vampires, hunters, they all look like people. Is that old man just a tired restaurant worker, or a kindred thrall tailing your movements? Are the officers idly waiting in a patrol car ordinary cops, or Second Inquisition specialists looking to end undead threats? This kind of thinking leads to madness, but you can't shake the feeling that someone is watching you. It's not the first time you've felt like this. Whatever this is, it's probably something you have to take care of. Best case, someone is tailing you. Worst case, you'll be attacked and killed. Unfortunately, being undead has its limitations. The sun is coming up soon and you'll burn to a crisp if you stay on the streets. You reach your haven and settle in for the day, disconcerted by the idea that someone might know where you sleep. Always a bad thing. As you wake from your slumber and emerge from your haven for the night, you notice a familiar face on the other side of the street, standing on the corner, looking straight at you. It's Kaiser's lackey, whom you met recently, Jackie. He nods to you, encouraging you to approach. He's still kind of rough after your last brawl, but the damage to his face is clearly mended. His hands are out of his pockets, though, a sign of goodwill. That's close enough. What the hell do you want? The boss sent me. He's got a message for you. He produces a crumbled piece of paper from his jacket pocket and hands it to you. Read it, memorize it, give it back. It's a letter. The paper might be just a page ripped out of a spiral notebook, but the writing on it is exquisitely detailed and deliberate. It reads, "Time to square the debt with me. Go to the wine shop at 232 Mulberry Street and ask for 1821 Special Reserve Donatello Negroamo. When they tell you they don't have it, say you are a fidel servitor della familia G. Those exact fucking words. And make sure you get the G right. You'll get a bottle. Just take it and leave it by Gracie. Don't ask how much it is or anything else, just walk out. When you have it, come back to Jackie Boy here and let him know. You done. Memorize that shit and hand it over." Didn't peg your boss for a letter kind of guy. Isn't electronic communication his whole shtick? Yeah, well, some things are better done the old-fashioned way. You about done with the letter? You note the phrases mentioned in the letter and the address, then hand the letter back to Jackie. He immediately reaches for a lighter and burns it, putting out the ashes with his boot. So yeah, when you do what the boss asks, come back here so I can tell you where to go next. I'll be in the alley over there, so find me when you have the item, whatever it is. I don't know, and the boss made it extra clear that I shouldn't care, so I don't. See ya. He shuffles away and leaves you to pursue the lead in the letter. Time to pay a visit to Nolita. You arrive at the address mentioned in the note. Not counting the local restaurant patrons, the street is mostly empty at this time of night, but curiously, the wine shop is still open. Inside, a small, middle-aged woman with curly hair stands behind the counter in front of an entire wall of wine bottles. There's a door at the end of the room with a small table and a chair occupied by a man with a slick combed-back hair, who's dressed in a black faux leather jacket. He's reading a newspaper, but pauses as a little bell rings when you open the door. He takes a sip from a small, steaming cup, then gets back to his broadsheet. Good evening. How can I help? I would like a bottle of 1821 Special Reserve Donatello Negroamo, please. Let me check our stock. She seems to be looking through a database on the laptop sitting on the counter. She puts on a polite smile. I'm afraid we don't have that one at the moment. I'm sorry. I am a fidel servitor della familia G. In that case, let me see if we have any in the back. Wait here, please. The woman leaves the counter and goes through the doors in the back. The man by the table puts down his newspaper and takes another sip from the cup, washing it down with a gulp of water from a nearby glass. He tries to hide it, but there is no doubt he's watching you. About a minute passes. You remind yourself of what Kaiser wrote in the letter, and you just keep quiet, patiently waiting for the woman to return from the back of the store. The man finishes his drink and starts doodling on the newspaper, his eyes darting to you every so often. The doors to the back of the store open and the proprietor emerges with a small, unlabeled squat bottle of crimson liquid. She gives you an apologizing smile. "Scoozy, sorry for taking so long. Turns out we did have it." She offers you the bottle and you reach out to grab it, but she retracts. "You do know what this is, don't you?" Your focus, your blood, and you immediately see both of the people in the shop focus intently on you and what you're about to say. "I know exactly what this is, and I'm the right person to give it to." The woman gives you the bottle without hesitation. "Grazie." Deciding you've pushed your luck far enough, you nod and exit the store, then take a brisk walk back to your car. Nobody follows you as you leave Nolita and drive back to your apartment. It takes you some time to find a parking spot, but finally, you get out of the car and start looking for Jackie. He's not far from where you parted ways just under 2 hours ago. "Got the goods?" "I sure do." Now, we're not asking questions, and normally, maybe in a tabletop RPG, I might ask questions, just pry a tiny bit. However, it's also smart to know how powerful this person who wants us to do this is, what we tried to do by using presence on him prior, and knowing that we kind of screwed up. Like I said in our first and second episode, we firmly believe the Camarilla game is one of the easiest to play. You have to know your position in the totem pole and play to it, even if that means playing fetch every once in a while. Cool, stand by, gotta make the call. He takes a few more steps into a narrow space between two buildings and takes out the same high-tech phone you saw him carry the last time. "Hey, boss." "Yeah, they have it. Where do I point them to?" "Okay. Yeah, I'll tell him to go there right away." He puts the phone back inside his pocket and turns back to you, and I'm gonna take a sip of my coffee. "Willets Point, half an hour, so you better step on it, see you around." With just a flippant salute, Jackie starts walking down the street. You make your way back to the car and drive. You had to push the speed limit to make it on time, but you're here. Willets Point is quite a change of scenery. The place is a post-industrial dump, the nearby stadium notwithstanding. You stop your car once you realize that if you go any further down, the potholes are going to kill your chassis. You step out into one of the gashes in the asphalt, splashing the ankle-deep water. Kaiser's limo is nowhere to be seen. In fact, the whole place is pretty much deserted, other than the apparent proprietor of a lonely bar, a middle-aged woman who's just locking the place up. "We're not hungry, so we're not going to feed." You stay near your car and decide to wait. Kaiser must be on his way. Or if he's not, and instead playing one of his games, then you're not participating. You've got what he wants. Let him come to you. The bright lights of a car pulling up down the road some 10 minutes later catch your attention. It's a black limo. Kaiser is finally here, it would seem. Same as last time, the car doors open, but nobody comes out. You know the drill. This time Kaiser is visible for the first time. You look inside. You sit down and close the door behind you. "So you pulled it off without a hitch then? Give it here." You hand the bottle over to the Nosferatu. He uncorks it gently, takes a whiff, and puts the cork back in. "Yeah, that's the stuff. I can see you're useful beyond your charm with the subtlety of a battering ram. Good to know. Here's Langley's precious address." He passes you an envelope with what feels like a thick card inside. "Thank you, Mr. Kaiser." Yeah. I'll send Jackie over if I ever need anything else from you. How about that? Time for you to get out now." He waves you out the car. With the envelope in hand, you get out back onto the torn asphalt and decrepit surroundings. The limo slowly drives away. Finally, you can return to Sophie and bring her what she wanted. Gregory lets you in. You hear a shrill, unpleasant laugh, and you realize Sophie's having a guest over. Thomas Arturo. You met in Elysium a few nights back. That shriek is almost unmistakable. Ah yes, Jessica, so glad to see you. Tell me, did you two have a chance to talk before? Thomas speaks before you can. Why yes, of course. And such a good first impression you made too. Miss Langley clearly did the right thing by taking you under her wing. I'm sure she thinks so too, don't you, Sophie? Why yes, of course. Of course you do. Of course. Well, I believe I got to be going. I'll be sure to let Prince Panhard know your thoughts, Miss Langley. Word for word. Or as close as I can remember them. I appreciate it, Thomas. You two enjoy your night now. Good night, Sophie, Jessica, Gregory boy. He gives you a sly smile. Sophie's driver opens the door for Arturo and the guest steps out with a single wave of the hand toward his host and you. The doors close. He's quite the character, isn't he? Yes, quite, but he has his uses. Thomas has clout in court and access to many juicy details on everyone from the prince to the lowliest primogen. It's useful to have him on your side, even if his eccentricity requires some patience. Speaking of patience, you have been putting mine to the test lately. Did you manage to contact Kaiser and inquire what I asked for? Yes, I have it, but the data you offered was old news to him. I had to do another job for him before he gave me this card. She retrieves the envelope from you. I'm sure he did. I do hope it wasn't too much of an inconvenience. He had me go on an entire separate escapade to retrieve a bottle of wine from a store in Nolita. I had to use code phrases and whatnot. Wine shop? Code phrases? That degenerate pest. She's visibly agitated, but calms down and smiles at you. Don't worry about it. I'll make sure that whatever Kaiser had you do, it'll blow over. She opens the envelope and looks at the card. You notice the same lettering you saw on Kaiser's note from before, but can't see the details. Her eyes widen. Yes, excellent. I need to call in some favors. I will likely be busy for the next few nights. You have my permission to show some initiative, my dear Charge. I will contact you soon. With that, Sophie ushers you outside. And again, this is just written poorly. With that, Sophie ushers you outside, and you are left to do with the rest of the night's hours as you like. And it seems, we could go back to this person who might be tailing us, or we could work on the crime. That is for a decision of another night. We'll see you soon.